inaugural lecture, The Rise of Subtitling, by Professor Jorge Diaz-Cintas. I have an Italian name, but I find Spanish incredibly difficult to pronounce. I'm really sorry. I am Stella Abruzzi, the Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Humanities, and I'm your kind of Master of Ceremonies for the evening. I just am introducing people. So I just got a text. And here to give you a warm welcome to everyone who's here, colleagues, students, members of the public, here to enjoy this and other events in UCL's Festival of Culture. When I joined UCL, Michael Arthur, the provost, said to me when I took the job that everyone here at UCL is a great scholar, not just a few. And today is above all a celebration of that, of our community, and above all of someone who, having been made up to professor, is now allowed to profess, to tell us, to give us his mind, tell us what to think. But I'll let you into a secret, although I said this, I have told other people that I've been a professor for more years than I care to remember. But I was never called upon to give my own inaugural lecture. And no doubt, I think Groucho Marx would have something funny to say about that and clubs that I've never been a member of. But, and I brought a prop here, partly because I thought it might make some people laugh, the younger people amongst you. In my hand, I don't have the lecture that I've been waiting to give for 14 years, but I have a relic from a bygone age, a VHS of a subtitled movie by Spanish director Luis Buñuel, recorded off BBC Two sometime in the early 1990s, when television seasons of subtitled films were commonplace. My husband and a friend of ours, Stephen Gundlin, some of you may know Stephen, had a bet in 2002 about whether or not, over the course of the next 6 months, either BBC Two or Channel 4 would screen a subtitled film before 11 p.m. Neither channel did. That era, which had done so much to introduce a generation to foreign language movies, had well and truly passed. And yet here we are today with, in the brave new world of new media, the rise of subtitling, the subject of tonight's lecture. But enough of my yakking, and anyone who comes to anything else I introduce will get used to my film references. That's a reference to not a subtitle movie, but to This Is Spinal Tap. I'm, after all, as I said at the beginning, only your kind of master of ceremonies. So, first, after me, we get on to the important stuff. First, we have Professor Frederick Chaume, from the University, I don't think I can pronounce it, University, Chaume in Castellón, an honorary professor here at UCL, I can do that bit, who will introduce Jorge. Then Jorge will talk, and then there will be a vote of thanks given by Professor Aline Remal, is that okay, from the University of Antwerp. And then I will return to usher everyone to a drinks reception, which is in the main building. So if any of you don't know how to get there, make sure you follow UCL people, or you won't get your drink. All right, so, Frederick, over to you, and I've got to pass you the microphone.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Hope it works. Does it work here? Dean of Arts and Humanities, Professor Stella Abruzzi, authorities of University College London, Professor Jorge Diaz-Cintas, Professor Aline Remal, colleagues and distinguished guests, I'd also like to welcome all of you here this evening. It's an enormous pleasure and privilege to be here on such an important occasion and to be asked to introduce Professor Jorge Diaz-Cintas' inaugural lecture at UCL. An inaugural lecture at any university, especially at UCL, is one of the outstanding events in the university calendar, a significant milestone in both university life and in one's personal career. And it is therefore a great honor to be part of this academic but also personal moment in Professor Diaz-Cintas' life. An inaugural lecture reflects the esteem we have for a colleague, but it also symbolizes the countless hours the person has invested to achieve their professorship. Many of us in this auditorium may feel that Jorge needs no introduction at all, either because we have attended his numerous lectures, seminars, classes, workshops, and roundtables all over the world, or because we have been deeply influenced by his books, articles, book chapters, and reports brought out by the most renowned publishers and read by both professionals and scholars in the field of translation studies throughout the world. Or maybe simply because his energy, dynamism, and enthusiasm has touched us all in one way or another. I first met Jorge some 17 years ago when I had just submitted my PhD thesis and was starting out on my post-thesis career, when both of us were trying to open up a path in the academic jungle. I had then read Jorge's PhD thesis thanks to his supervisor, Dr. Antonia Sanchez Macarro, one of the best teachers Jorge and myself have ever had. I'm sure that Jorge will agree. She was an English studies lecturer avant la lettre and unconditionally supported him in writing and submitting a PhD thesis in an area still considered to be little more than a simple trade that required no academic attention, an activity undertaken by a closed, impenetrable guild that could only be learned by doing, acquired by close observation from previous generations, hand in hand with professionals, and that also required a large dose of creativity that only a few were born with. However, Jorge's contribution to the area of audiovisual translation has proved the opposite to be true. I think it is no exaggeration to say that Jorge has turned audiovisual translation into a research area. He is, and it goes without saying, a leading scholar in the field. But many of us would simply go further and say that he is the leading scholar in the field, in our field. And this is not just a personal, subjective statement or compliment. It could be a personal statement, and we could remain friends forever. But I prefer to be descriptive, as the main trend in our discipline has taught us all to be. And to be descriptive, please let me give you some significant numbers, which, although he might find a bit embarrassing, maybe, will show us the extent of his influence in our discipline. Jorge took his BA in English Studies at the University of Valencia, Spain, back in the 80s, when Spain was undergoing... was last year, maybe. Okay. When Spain was undergoing major changes in every aspect after Franco's dictatorship. Then he moved to the UK and has now been teaching at UCL since 2013, where we are very lucky to have him. Previously, he also taught at Imperial College London, the University of Roehampton, and also Kingston, South Bank, the London Institute, Surrey, and Middlesex. He earned his PhD in 1997 from the University of Valencia, Spain, in what was at that time a particularly new field, subtitling and audiovisual translation, a field then despised by many linguists, philologists, and language teachers. That thesis is now obligatory reading in our field, conveniently transformed and updated in several books. But to finish it, he had to swim against the tide, something that Jorge has been doing all his life in order to ensure audiovisual translation now occupies the place it rightly deserves. So here are some amazing things Jorge has done in that time that I think we all should be aware of. He has supervised Since then, 17 completed PhD theses, has peer-reviewed for the most renowned journals in our discipline, has been a visiting and guest lecturer at BA, MA, PhD level, at over 60 universities in Europe, Asia, and America. Has taken part as a PhD examiner on panels in 60 universities throughout the world. Has published 42 authored and co-authored chapters in books, 17 articles in refereed impact journals, 3 authored and co-authored books, and 11 edited and co-edited books. Importantly, he firmly believes that scholarship belongs not only in research publications, but also in best-selling books and in collaboration with the real world. He has also written 23 external consultancy and confidential reports commissioned by international companies, universities, and institutions all over the world. He occupies a rare, almost unique position between humanities and the industry, between the academic study of audiovisual translation and subtitling and the needs of the industry stakeholders. He has been interviewed 21 times on the radio, TV, and the web to spread the word about audiovisual translation. He has won 7 national and international prizes and awards, including the prestigious Jan Iverson Award. Has been keynote speaker in 73 plenary sessions at universities, conferences, and professional meetings all over the world. Not to mention more than 200 talks, seminars, and guest lectures at different universities, bodies, associations, conferences, and so on. That makes around 300 talks. Jorge, are you sure there is just one of you? You have been cloned like Dolly the sheep. He has been active organizer and member of the scientific and advisory committee of over 60 conferences all over the world. And he has been a director or member of over 30 funded research projects, including European Union projects. All these statistics are also fruit of his tightly argued and clearly structured work. Quantity, in his case, is not to the detriment of quality, but amazingly, everything he has written and discussed has penetrated our discipline, and there it will stay for good. Jorge works in such a brilliant, decisive fashion that he may well be one of the first scholars cited in our discipline in all indexes. Always opening up new avenues of other scholarship, Jorge has published 3 books on subtitling, the first and second being the first references published in Spanish. The second one, especially Teoría y Práctica de la Subtitulación, Inglés-Español, is now used in every Spanish-speaking university that teaches audiovisual translation. But maybe internationally, his great leap forward in our area came with the renowned audiovisual translation subtitling, now published by Routledge and co-authored with Professor Aline Remail, which due its meteoric dazzling success is now out of print. Next, Jorge embarked on another promising project, a topic that had been tackled in dubbing but not much in subtitling: censorship, one of the most important landmarks in Jorge's academic career, in my viewpoint, is issue number 57-2 of the international journal Meta, The Manipulation of Audiovisual Translation, which has been internationally acclaimed as a cornerstone of the cultural turn in audiovisual translation. A testimony of Jorge's ability to work with complex questions and also his skill in applying his research findings to the industry is the demand for his consultancy services from large, very well-known multinationals in the audiovisual industry. Jorge is an example of what the new model of universities requiring of us. Someone who can liaise with the industry and raise funds from private companies interested in the research universities do. Qualities I especially want to highlight because they are very rare in the field of humanities. We have all come here to listen to him, not to me, but I cannot finish this short and unnecessary lame introduction without giving some personal insights, very briefly. Since I first met him, Jorge has always kept an eye out for me. But I soon realized that it was not just for me, but also for dozens, maybe hundreds, of colleagues, BA students, MA students, PhD students, and professionals whom Jorge has unfailingly helped in all manner of ways, bringing them to London when they needed it, generously reviewing their academic production, skillfully opening doors to publishing houses for them, expertly teaching them, astutely introducing them to people who could be of help, and so on and so forth. We all know him, and we all know that this is true. Thanks to him, and I hope you will agree, Centras now has an impressive team of teachers, researchers, and PhD students, since Jorge has successfully created an interdisciplinary group that is now a benchmark in audiovisual translation here in the UK, but especially in the rest of the world. I truly hope that this continues to be the case for many years to come, that it doesn't go sideways or thrown overboard, and from an international perspective, that Centras remains the center of excellence that is today. This long list of achievements simply shows that he does what he does, not to tick boxes in this new complex academic world, but because he passionately believes in his work. I am now delighted to invite him to give his inaugural lecture entitled The Rise of Subtitling, a field in which, as you all know, he is second to none. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the kind words, Fede. Thank you as well, Professor Stella Bruzzi, for having introduced me as well to the group. I was nervous, and I think I'm even more nervous now after these introductions and the expectations that you may have of me and my work. It's a real joy to see so many of you here today. As you know, it's a very special occasion for me academically and also personally, as my colleague has just mentioned. And I'm doubly grateful to you for being here today, but also for the support that you've shown throughout the years. Most of you I've known for quite a while, and you've always been there. I wouldn't be standing here today had it not been for your constant encouragement and support when I needed and when I required it from you. Some of you have known me since my arrival in this amazing metropolis back in 1989. I've been here that long. When I landed from just as a young lad from the exciting and amazing city of Albacete. For those of you who cannot locate it in the map, it's just at the back of Beyond in Spain. Okay, that's where I was doing my things. And having you all here today, it makes it doubly special and very emotional as well to be here. Sharing my life, as I do, with a mathematician, I've learned to find out the power of numbers. And I'll just give you a little idea. I've been, at the last count, I've given just over 150 keynote and guest speeches around the world in round about 38 countries in the world. And believe you me, I've never so nervous. I've never been so nervous to prepare as I was for this inaugural. And I'm very pleased, Stella, that you didn't have to do yours. It's nerve-wracking. But let's see, let's begin now. Let me begin with the talk, and let's hope that the nerves will desert me once I start more fully into my presentation. For some people, at the beginning, it was the word. And this is a reason why language and linguistics have been considered the core of our research, of our matter of translation. And it's an understanding that justifies why translation, our young discipline, has been always considered sort of derivative from comparative linguistics or comparative literature sometimes. I'd like to argue, however, that at the beginning it wasn't the word. It was much more than that. It was the body gestures, it was the kinetics, it was the paralinguistic information that contributed fully to making meaning and making conversations. And I think that is, in my opinion, the reason why audiovisual communication is so pervasive in our society these days, because it really helps us replicate what we do on a normal basis, on a daily routine, but also with the advantage that with technology it can easily be transported and reach all the corners in the world. And like purely written text, that's what translation or what audiovisual materials can do. And it goes without saying that the more we communicate audiovisually, the more we will need to translate as well audiovisually. But in my beginning, it was the exciting, thrilling VHS. That's what I started doing as a research. In the early 90s, when nobody was really working in this field, I just took the decision to write my PhD in subtitling in a department in Spain, my colleague mentioned, in Valencia University, where everybody else was working either on Shakespeare or on systemic functional grammar. So it was quite a departure from the norm, you could say, but those days I was young. I didn't even know that I was going to enter the academic world, and I guess I've always been a little bit of a rebel. So that's why I decided to embark on an area that was very little known to anyone else. It was also in the early 90s when subtitling wasn't taught in the academic curriculum in this country that I started teaching subtitling, and I can see here colleagues that pushed me to organize something with the industry. And we started subtitling, teaching subtitling at Roehampton. And those were the days where I would go with lots of VHS tapes to do my teaching. And then to avoid the students seeing the subtitles, I will cover the screens with paper so that they wouldn't see the subtitles. And believe you me, people thought that I was the techie of the department, you know, using my VHS and all my paper constructions and things. But what is it really that I do and I've been doing all these years for my research? Well, it's called subtitling, and it's part of a wider umbrella term which we know under the concept of audiovisual translation. And one of its distinctive features is that it deals with multimodal productions. In multimodal productions, and I quote here somebody called Stork, one article from 2004, he groups the visual and the auditory semiotic resources that we use to not only produce audiovisual material, but also to make sense of audiovisual material. And what we've got is two channels, audio and visual, that give name to the discipline, and then four main layers of information: sound, music, images, and language. The combination and juxtaposition of all these layers is what is being called the resource integration principle, i.e., you need all those together to make sense, and isolated, they probably don't make much sense. And that's a challenge for us when we do translation. But not only that, to just make it a bit more exciting, then you get everything is in constant movement throughout the film, and that's why it's called the moving images. So imagine if you were given something like that to translate and see the imbrication with the sound, the music, the visuals, and so on.
I bought something from you last week, and I'm very disappointed. Oh yeah? What's the problem? Yeah, well, my BlackBerry is not working. What's the matter? You run out of juice? No, it's completely frozen. Oh yeah, I can see that. I'll tell you what, let's try it on orange. That's got a few black spots. Oh dear, yeah, sorry about that. Yeah. Well, then how do you get my BlackBerry working? Well, it could be an application issue. But where do you store that BlackBerry? Well, it's on my desktop. Well, you could try using a mouse to drag the BlackBerry to the trash. Then after you've done that, you might want to launch the BlackBerry from the desktop. Well, I've already tried that a few times. I mean, all it did was mess up Windows. Well, it might be worth waiting a couple of weeks. They got the latest BlackBerries coming in then. Well, could you give me a date? Certainly. I'll put that date in my diary.
So just a little sample of the sort of areas that you might have to deal with, hopefully not just with all that imbrication of images, text, sound, and the references. And as I promised earlier on, and going on with the presentation, just a few general ideas on what subtitles are and how they work. Now, in terms of form, you usually get 2 lines, no more than that, when you're doing commercial subtitling or standard subtitling, around about 37 to 42 characters per line. That's the maximum that we allow. If you're working with other languages, say Chinese, Japanese, you might get up to 16 characters per line. Then it's time constrained. The text cannot remain on the screen as long as you want, but it depends on the synchrony with the person that is speaking on camera. Then they are always sent usually to the bottom of the screen so that they don't contaminate, they don't pollute the image. They are written in a font that is as non-intrusive as possible so that they don't call too much attention to them. And for the same reason, the stylistic devices that we use are very, very limited. So you don't use too many, you don't call attention to the text. And when you decide on one color, all the subtitles will remain in the same color. Okay? So that's from a formal perspective. From the content side, we use many translation strategies, but one of the ones that we refer to mostly is reduction. We have to reduce the original text, sometimes by condensations, sometimes we just delete information, and this is a fairly normal occurrence in our field. We're not allowed, or we're not used to using, for instance, translators' notes. You will find, for instance, translating a book, you can have footnotes, you can have a preface, an epilogue. We usually don't do it in our field. And some people talk about subtitling as being a diagonal translation. We go from the oral to the written text, and we know that we don't speak the same way that we write, which it can be very problematic when you reflect, or you try to reflect areas like dialects, oral features, or swear words. Yeah, so this is the main area and some of the main challenges that we have to cope with when we translate it. And I'll give you a few examples. This is from a German film called The Tin Tram, and what you find there, lots of numbers in subtitling. The duration of this subtitle is not just short of 5 seconds. You've got the original text in German, all the information, and I've given you a back translation, a very literal back translation of what the German is saying in English. And what you get on this screen is a reduction of the text, and that will be the translation. That's the commercial translation of that speech, part of the speech. Which, if you are doing other types of translation, literary translations, scientific, technical translation, you will start querying why this is all going on in here. And as I mentioned to you, swear words can be really difficult to deal with. So this comes from Sex and the City, the TV series, and you've got the Icaris talking to a male colleague of hers that happens to be gay, and when she just says to him, you know, what you are, you're a whore. Okay? This is the translation that you get in Chinese. And I guess most of you probably won't understand what is going on. I can see a few faces smiling now, but what the benefit of everybody else, that's what the translation says in there. It's very creative. It's an euphemism of what he's saying. It's pretty close to the original, not quite in the same sort of register and style. So those are the things that I spend my days and nights looking at, helping my students supervise in the area and work on it. I've worked in many areas in this field, and Fede was kind enough to mention some of them: linguistics of subtitling, translation strategies in this particular area, manipulation and censorship has been an area that has called my attention as well, the representation of gender and how the text in the subtitles is manipulated when it makes it to a different language, subtitling quality, and most recently we've been working with colleagues in Centres for a large multinational company working in precisely subtitling testing and how the industry can then develop new systems to bring in new professionals to work in subtitling. And I'm currently working as well with some of my PhD students on audiovisual translation training, cloud-based systems, which to this day nothing exists on how to train future professionals taking the most of the cloud, and also reception studies. We've managed to get a colleague of mine that is also around here today from the University of Warsaw to just do research on how audiences are actually receiving the subtitles by using biometric devices and tools like eye tracking. That's what I've been doing, and I am doing these days. But what I would like to concentrate here today more closely is on digital culture, and particularly given the climate that we are living in, I'm going to pay more attention to political activism from the perspective of subtitling and what people are doing out there in this field. Now, for digital culture, I would like just to refer briefly to the concept of convergence culture. It's something that it was theorized by Henry Jenkins back in 2006 from media studies, and basically he sees society as a place where old and new media collide, where grassroots and corporate media intersect, where the power of the media producer and the power of the media consumer interact in unpredictable ways. And this is a new paradigm on how we communicate and we do things. We have moved from one communication of one to many to communication of many to many. Yeah, and distributing our agendas and our way of thinking. This ties in quite nicely with another concept that has been put forward by those which is this prosuming media, this blending of not just prosumers, not just consumers, but we tend to be both sides of the coin. We just produce material, but we also consume it. And this is blurring now what is work and what is culture and meaning, how do we produce and consume at the same time, and how then the spectatorship, the people that were just passive users, are actually working much more in being active in the communication of information. This is obviously being done possible. It's been possible because of the democratization of technology. We have moved from analog technology to digital technology, and that has had immense impact in our lives, but particularly in my field of research in subtitling. That allows us, the Web 2.0, just moved from static information to dynamic information, to videos, to be distributed and to be circulated. And these days is very, very simple to just work with a video suite, to do play videos, manipulate videos, cut videos, do a different editing montage, and I will be showing you some of these examples. And freeware subtitling is available, which means that anyone in this room, outside this room, can just do subtitles for free. We're talking about programs that a few years back, 10, 15 years back, will cost you thousands of pounds, and now they are freely available and exploited by people. This has given rise to what is being called, is known by fan-subbing, amateur subtitling, which is a practice originated in the well before digital technology, and people were actually exchanging material through VHS. But in the 90s, that's when it caught the imagination of people. And it's just people doing subtitles for the love of subtitles. They started with anime productions in Japanese, thinking that there was nothing distributed throughout the world. They wanted to popularize this field, and they were just doing subtitles and distributed on the internet so that everybody could enjoy it. There was a sort of untold gentleman's agreement, which was, okay, once this program makes it through the world, then we will stop doing subtitles or fan subbing them, so that then they can be commercialized and money can be made out of this and not just be a copyright issue. These days that has escalated. It's not just fun by fans. Most programs, most TV series will get subtitled by fans, for fans, and distributed throughout the internet in no time. And this has changed our paradigm. You've got here the types of subtitles that we have. Traditionally, we have commissioned subtitles. Somebody's asking me and paying me for those. And that's any decent company out there. That's the job that they will be doing. And that was subtitling, say, 20 years ago. There was nothing else. But these days, what we find as well is somebody's commissioning subtitles for free. And people are willing to volunteer their expertise, their knowledge, their language skills for free, usually with some hidden or with some agendas. I guess most of you will be familiar with platforms like TED, Amara, Khan Academy. They do all these videos that otherwise probably wouldn't be subtitled, they wouldn't be translated, and they're always with philanthropic ideas behind them so that people can learn, can get the knowledge of programs that without their language it will escape them. This is what is being called in academic circles is the dependency model. Somebody's asking you to do it. They've coined this term of labor. You play, but it's also labor, and sometimes people are being exploited for their work and not being paid for that. And this raises quite a few concerns from an ethical perspective. But you also get non-commissioned subtitles. Nobody's asking me for subtitles, but I volunteer to do subtitles and distribute throughout the internet. There are many individuals and collectives. They do everything. They just choose the material, the clips. They will do the spotting, the technical dimension, the linguistic dimension, the distribution. They will take care of everything. And this is where fan subbing takes more place. This is known as the developmental model. It's allowing people, empowering people to communicate, to do things that traditionally they couldn't do, and push forward certain agendas or certain ideas. This is particularly what I would like to pay attention to today, and that's what I've been working on more recently. I'd like to call this subtitling with intent. We are doing it for a particular reason. And I'd like to call a previous concept by somebody also from the USA, John Fisker, which blends in quite naturally with the previous one of convergence culture, which is semiotic democracy. This is an environment, a world where the audiences freely and widely engage in the use of cultural symbols. You appropriate information from other people in response to the forces of media. A semiotic democracy, in his words, enables the audience to resist, to subvert, and recode certain cultural symbols to express meanings that are different from previous meanings that were there, and to empower consumers that therefore become now producers. And I will be showing you some examples of how this is done. And I would like to go a step further from his approach to discuss more semiotic activism. It is people going a step forward to take this practice that gives them a voice to disenfranchised minorities, to people that otherwise probably wouldn't get their voices heard in this multicultural global society. And it foregrounds the value, the symbolic value of information, and particularly in projects that are designed to highlight problems of social justice. Yeah, and this is a new area in the field of subtitling that commercial interests will probably don't pay attention to, but in cultural capital is pretty developing very much. Just to give you an idea why people are doing this, of course we've got the technology that allow us to do this, but also there is the incentive of the social media. The Reuters Institute, which are based in Oxford, just at the beginning of this month came up with the digital news report. It's for 2016, but it just refers, it was just launched in 2017. And this is just how people consume news, not fiction, no animation, no other programs, but just news in the media. They surveyed 26 countries. 51% of the people surveyed, they just read or use, get their news from social media. Just over half of them. Facebook, by far, is the most important one, with 44%, not only to find information, but also to read, to watch, and then to disseminate further on to other people. There is a whopping 8 billion views every day in Facebook. It's just, the numbers are humongous. And then, probably to no surprise to most of you, the under 35s are the ones that are using this more. And relying on that. So what is this semiotic activism? What does it look like in practice? So I've taken a look at a couple of groups that are on the internet, volunteering, with different agendas. So the first one is AJ+, which is a little bit difficult to tell from that logo. If you do a little bit more of research, actually is Al Jazeera, but they are helping in this platform to, and this is from the About on the website, to experience, empower and engage you with information. We are looking at information without borders, i.e. already you will need translation, you will need to cross that linguistic barrier somehow, and they want to challenge the status quo. Yeah? Then I take a look at another one, which is a Spanish one called Revolucion.es, Spanish Revolution, in there, and they were formed after the 15th of May 2011, which was the big uprising in Spain, in Madrid, Puerta del Sol. A political party was created out of that, Podemos, which is now the second, third force in the country. And also this group started their campaigning and their political activism. And as you see there, they are fighting for dignity and political and social awareness. And then the last one is French. They don't have translation in their website, but they don't belong to any political party or religion. They are known for profit. They don't make any money when they do this, and what they want to do is to provide easy to read information that is quick, fast, that is verified and verifiable. So they all share this sort of greater ideas on how they can enact some power in society, and most of them do it through subtitling. Now I'm giving you a few clips now, and hopefully they will all be working. This is the last elections, or elections in Spain, 2015. They are in December, and a couple of weeks before they do this program on the telly. This is the guy that belongs to the party that I mentioned earlier on, which is Podemos, and then he speaks for 1 minute. They only have 1 minute. And this is what he says with subtitles.
Solo quiero pedirles dos cosas. La primera, que no olviden tarjetas black, no olviden los desahucios, no olviden Punta, no olviden Gürtel, no olviden Luis Sé Fuerte, no olviden los seres de Andalucía, no olviden la estafa de las preferentes, no olviden las colas en la sanidad, no olviden los recortes en educación, no olviden el 135, no olviden la reforma laboral. La segunda cosa que les voy a pedir es que sonrían al 15M, que sonrían a las plazas, que sonrían a los vecinos que pagaban desahucios, que sonrían a Ada Colau, que sonrían a los autónomos y a los pequeños empresarios, que sonrían a los que se levantan a las 6 de la mañana para trabajar y a los que se levantan a las 6 de la mañana y no tienen dónde ir a trabajar, que sonrían a las madres con jornadas de 15 horas, que sonrían a los abuelos que se parten la espalda para estirar su pensión. Sonrían que sí se puede. Gracias, señor Iglesias.
Now, you would wonder, I myself have been living out of Spain for many years, and I will find very difficult some of the references because they are really engraved. They're really peculiar, not just for Spain, but for a political period in Spain. And yet, they've decided to subtitle and to just reach out to the international community to make sure that we share things in common. This comes soon after all the changes that were taking place in Greece as well. So there was this sort of way of trying to embrace a wider European approach. And by doing this, what they're doing is flaunting one of the main approaches in subtitling, which is adding the subtitler is becoming present in the subtitles to try to explain to you slightly, quickly, because there is not much time, there's no space, to tell you the first one is a corruption case, the second one is an illegal party funding, the other one is a constitutional reform and corruption problems here, and they're constantly appearing in the subtitles just to make sure that the message is being conveyed. Now, a few years back, nobody would be wondering or worrying about translating this type of programs, but now that's what you get in your social media, in your Facebook, in your YouTube, and so on. All the platforms, the social groups that I mentioned, all the activist groups, they all have got presence. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, that's the way they communicate to the world. There is another way of dealing with this, is the choice of material that probably wouldn't be translated unless you choose it and then start distributing it and add its subtitles. And then you've got this one, this little boy. Right, this is AJ Plus, Al Jazeera, but it's made it through the internet in many languages. There is at least several in English, in French, in Spanish, Syria Charity, AJ Plus, so there are many, many outlets. And as you can see, from the very beginning, there is a call to the world, is A, and then the subtitler implies Arabs, yeah, world, A, world, calling to everyone else. And then later on as well, this idea that we need translation for this, please share this message with all the countries. You can only share if you've got a language in different languages and different countries. But there is also competing narratives when it comes to this, to translating this. So the same clip, this is the AJ Plus, the same clip has been distributed by Syrian Charity, and then you get the translation of the same text. Please deliver this message to the world, it is your duty. Yeah, and it's adding more to the viewer that, can you just help to do something, and can you share the information well beyond your own remit. And this has been a common thread in some of the projects. Now here you've got this little clip was released on the 29th of May. By this morning, when I was working on this presentation before coming here, it had already been seen by 20 million people in English, and you've got all these statistics there on how many on how many shares, likes, and comments. And the Spanish version had been already watched by 18 million people. So as you can see, the spread and the reach of these activities is not to be sneered at. It reaches parts of the world. And this approach, this need of bringing the people together is being already tested, for instance, in the Egyptian revolution. There is this very famous project, with Most Ring project, and on the website they already call for people. We need translators to subtitle videos. The videos are recorded not by the BBC, not by CNN, not by the big corporations, but just people on the street recording with their mobiles. Anybody can now do any recordings, talking to their programs, and then asking the world, can you help us to translate this? Can you help us to subtitle, so that then we can spread the word and people will know what the plight is in our country, not through the big corporations. Now, there are also gender agendas that are inscribed in the translation. You've got this one is from a series of videos, women, words of women from the Egyptian revolution, and has been documented by Mona Baker in a big project that she had. The subtitles have been translated into English and also into Spanish. And in here, the Spanish, for those of you speaking the language, what they've decided to do is that when we talk about plural, muchos, muchas, many, you have to give gender. You have to say, my friends, there are many friends. You have to say whether they are male friends, female friends, or you go by the default version, which is the masculine. So they're trying to do away with this masculinity, particularly for a project that is words of women, and what they do is use an X that we will break that sort of masculinity in the language. So they are changing the subtitles, they're changing the language so that the gender won't be written in there. Sometimes, it doesn't work in the way that we think that it's always progressive and adding new things. Take a look at this little clip of little girls dressed like princesses in pink, the natural color, and what they're saying.
In distress. I'm pretty fucking powerful and ready for success. So what is more offensive? A little girl saying fuck or the fucking unequal and sexist way society treats girls and women.
Right. Now, this is from another group, FCKH8. And is an activist. They have an activist heart and a passionate social change to change a change mission, and they do viral video campaigns to combat racism, sexism, and homophobia. Okay, and what you get, as you saw, is that the subtitlers, a group of subtitles for Latin America, they just done the opposite. All these girls being really upfront, being really vocal. What they've done is just use these little things that I discovered. They're called grotliks. So these grotliks that you see, so they just make an appearance in the text, therefore just getting away with the real main point of the video, which was to present the girls really totally free and unconstrained linguistically speaking. But that is disappear in the text there. So these are some of the things that you can do translating and be sort of faithful to the original. But there is another area that interests me these days, which is using parody and using satire with subtitles to just try to make people conscious of changes or try to make people aware of how things could change. It's actually being coined by some people as Activism. You just laugh, but also with the emphasis that it's going to be something that is going to make you think as well. You only have to just think of Charlie Hebdo and being satirist and the backlash that we had later on. So satire, parody can be really, really powerful. And that's what some people are doing. What they are doing is recontextualizing audiovisual material. They take the audiovisual material and they recontextualize it in such a way that it looks, technically it's perfect. You would swear blind that that is what is going on those images, but it is thematically wrong. The information is completely different. And this is taking this suspension of disbelief. When we go to the cinema, you know that that's not happening there. When you translate, you know that that's not the way they're speaking. So you sort of suspend disbelief, you go into the film, and then you enjoy and you like it. This is a step further, because you know that there is something there that is even more jarring than the original. And I'll give you, that's what I would like to call, in this period that we live of fake news and fake information, these are fake subs. They are fake subtitles. We know they're not real, but they are fulfilling a purpose and a good one for that. I can see already some people laughing. There has been some of these videos have been viral. They've made it. To my surprise, or not my surprise, the German film, Der Unterfall, in English it was Downfall. There is one page where there are 25 different parodies of this one. There are many more circulated in many different languages. Then there is another one which is a Spanish guy called El Risitas. In English it's called The Giggles. And this is being used for lots of parodies. This one was for Brexit. And it was very famous before in Spain, before it was so popular, so it became a sort of meme on the internet. But since it's been added with subtitles, it's one of the hits on the internet. And everybody is using it and doing that. It's been quite a few articles being published in this. I'm going to show you just the last one before I finish my presentation. considering where we are at, whether this political activism will have any power in 2 days' time, I'm not really sure. It's just around the corner. But I will show you a little one of somebody that has been very present in our newspapers, televisions, and the internet. These are these fake subs.
北朝鮮は先ほどトランプ大統領との首脳会談の報告は常に 100% 日本と共にあるということを明言されました。そしてその意思を示すために今私の隣に大統領は日米同盟をさらに緊密化し、そして強化していくことで完全に一致をいたしました。先ほどトランプ大統領との首脳会談の中において、ここは 100% 日本と共にあるということを明言されました。そしてその意思を示すために私の隣に立っております。
Thank you very much.
Alex, that really wonderful lecture. Thank you so much. And that is a clip that I will certainly treasure and go back to. And now we have our vote of thanks. Alina, yes, if you would come up and I will hand the microphone over to you. And
Thank you.
if you were nervous, you didn't show it. It was just really...
Oops. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, it's very difficult to come after a speech like this, but lucky for you, all I have to do is round off. I'm very happy to be here. I'm very honored to have been invited to come and talk this evening and just to be between you and the reception. So I'd like to end with a big word of thanks to Professor Diaz-Cintas. First of all, thank you, Jorge, if I still may, for your enlightening, stimulating, and as always, entertaining talk, which has demonstrated not only your expertise in the field of AVT research once again, but also your capacity to engage both specialized and lay audiences and any mixture thereof. I'm quite certain that anyone present now is fascinated by our line of research if they weren't already so. And that maybe you should now immediately watch your Facebook, your mailbox that will be exploding, and your tweets. You will have many more followers, many more likes, if that is even possible. So, ladies and gentlemen, you will all have gathered that undertaking research in audiovisual translation is a challenge for many reasons. It's a pleasure, it's also a challenge, not least because it's a field on the move, and one that requires the researcher to reckon with the impact of the audiovisual industry, technology, governmental and other institutional bodies and policies, and in addition to that, the changing and diversifying profiles of practitioners, consumers, prosumers, activists. You've heard them all. Jorge, I truly believe you must have hardy ancestors who have passed on their very resilient genes to you, because I can't even begin to understand how you managed to combine all that Professor Fede Chami has mentioned in his introduction. And I know for a fact that he wasn't lying, because we have also been collaborating for decades. Your contribution to the field has been tremendous, and I would like to express a final word of thanks for all that you have done for research, researchers, students, and practitioners in audiovisual translation. a discipline that is truly a discipline of and for our times, a discipline of great social significance in today's global and mediatized world. In the name of all present and all those who are unable to come here today or to be with us today, congratulations on your well-deserved professorship, and a round of applause.